Grief makes people strange, and money turns them into strangers. I learned that a week after my mother's funeral, when I entered the lawyer's office expecting a fair split and left feeling erased. My brother, Adrian, looked beatific, the favorite son receiving praise while I stared at the beige envelope. The lawyer read quickly. Our mother left the house, the savings, and personal effects to Adrian. My name appeared once, then vanished. Keys, transfer, signatures. The pen scratched as Adrian signed. An aunt whispered that this was what mother always wanted. An uncle said responsibility belongs to the capable one. I watched the lawyer's hands so I would not watch Adrian smile. Outside, the family formed two currents. One flooded around Adrian. People asked about movers, selling, the peach tree. When I approached, the air cooled. An aunt I once drove to chemo told me to be gracious. A cousin thanked him for covering costs and turned her back. I walked to the bus stop alone by myself. I did not make a scene. I went to my apartment and sat on the floor until my legs went numb. Then I opened the metal box I had avoided. My mother was not wealthy, but she was careful. Last year she mailed me copies when she first spoke about a will. In those copies the house was split evenly, savings divided, jewelry listed with notes. The signatures matched the hand that taught me to write my own. What we heard at the office did not match what lived in my memory. I scrolled old texts until I found the photo she sent of the signed draft, her thumb half covering the date. I studied the loops of her name, then replayed the pages from the office. The E looked narrow. The tail of the R was wrong. Small things, easy to miss until you cannot. Doubt turned into a voice I could not mute. The next morning I called Adrian. He said he was busy. I said I wanted to understand. He said the will was the will, and mother trusted him because I had always been emotional. He said it kindly, the way he likes to bruise without leaving a mark. I stared at the wall until the paint seemed to pulse, then photographed every page in my box, and saved the images twice. By evening the family chat lit up. There would be a small celebration at mother's house, my aunt wrote, to honor her legacy and to thank Adrian for stepping up. Honor felt like the wrong word, but I pressed a heart anyway. You learn to show up even when your own heart is a fist. I baked lemon bars, her favorite, and carried them across town like an offering. The party smelled like cleaner and old sorrow. The sofa where she recovered after surgery had been shoved against a wall. A slideshow played. Our mother in a sun hat. Adrian with a trophy. Me in the background, half-cropped. Relatives pressed drinks into Adrian's hand and praised his numbers. They asked about renovations and the jewelry box. A cousin said I should be proud. I said I was proud mother raised two children who could read. I slipped down the hall to her bedroom. Afternoon light fell across the dresser. The jewelry box sat there, small and brown, lacquer chipped at the corners. I opened the lid. Under the first tray, beside a broken clasp, lay an index card in her handwriting. Not a list of rings. A date, a witness name, and a line that read revised with both children present. My breath caught. We never did a second visit together. The card warmed in my palm like a coal. Voices rose in the kitchen. Adrian laughed. An aunt called him generous for keeping holidays there. I slid the card into my sleeve and closed the box. In the mirror my face went still. I returned to the noise. Adrian lifted his glass while relatives circled like birds. They watched his mouth for crumbs and mine for bitterness. I smiled, cut cake, stacked plates, and counted. The card burned a hole in my sleeve the entire night. I held it against my skin while Adrian gave speeches about responsibility, about how mother trusted him to carry her wishes. Relatives nodded, clinked glasses, and looked at me like I should be grateful someone so capable was willing to manage what had been ours. I pressed the lemon bar tray into my cousin's hands and excused myself early, claiming a headache. No one argued. At home, I set the card on the table and stared at it until sunrise. The ink was hers, the slant of her writing unmistakable. I compared it to the photocopies she mailed me months earlier. The witness name matched, but the language in Adrian's version was off. My mother had never used the phrase, entrust entirely. She favored divide equally. That alone told me I was holding proof, but proof without context is just suspicion. So I made a plan. I visited the county records office under the excuse of closing accounts. The clerk barely looked at me as she handed over the latest filed copy of the will. The date didn't match the card. The signature was too clean, too perfect, as if traced with more care than memory ever allowed. I copied it 3 times, highlighting every inconsistency. When I asked quietly about handwriting verification, the clerk told me to speak with an attorney who specialized in estate disputes. That night I called Adrian again. I told him I wanted to let things go, that maybe Mother really had trusted him more. His laugh was sharp. She always knew I could handle it better, he said. And honestly, you should be thankful. I'll take care of you when you need it. The words stung more than the papers. He wasn't just claiming the inheritance. He was placing me beneath him, a sibling turned dependent. The following weekend he hosted another gathering. Not a memorial this time, but a celebration. Music played, catered trays lined the counter, and our relatives wore their best jewelry. They called him generous for paying. They called him strong for smiling. I stood near the window, watching cousins I once babysat pour his wine and laugh too hard at his jokes. When I spoke, their eyes slid away. I was the guest in my mother's house. I drifted down the hall again, this time careful not to draw attention. In the bedroom I found more. Letters with her handwriting tucked into books, half-finished notes in a drawer. Every one mentioned us both, never just him. She had spent her life splitting candy bars in 2, making sure neither of us felt less. The idea that she would erase me entirely became impossible to believe. Adrian found me there. He leaned in the doorway, tie loosened, drink in hand. You still don't get it, he said softly. She wanted peace. And peace meant letting me decide. His smile was patient, like a teacher correcting a child. Behind him, the noise of laughter swelled. I nodded, let him believe his words had landed, and slipped past. In the kitchen, an uncle was bragging about how Adrian promised to cover his debts. A cousin asked if he could stay at the house for a while. They weren't mourning. They were bargaining. Every word confirmed that money had replaced memory, and Adrian had bought their loyalty with promises he would never keep. That night I pulled out the photocopies again, laying them side by side with the filed version. The differences screamed at me now. The signature's tail curled differently, the date format was inconsistent, the witness's line slightly shifted. Small, but enough for someone trained to see. I made appointments, scanned everything, and backed up the files 3 times. By then, the family group chat buzzed with praise for Adrian. Photos of the celebration filled the thread, him at the center, me cropped out of corners. He's really stepped up, an aunt wrote. Mother would be proud, another added. I typed a response, deleted it, and closed the chat. Words would not convince them. Only the truth, dragged into the open, would. As I shut my laptop, I realized Adrian had built himself a throne in our mother's house. He believed the crown fit. But paper thrones burn quickly when touched by fire. And I had the matches. The weeks that followed felt like waiting for a storm I knew was coming. Each family gathering became another display of Adrian's power. He handed out promises like candy, and everyone lined up for their share. He told an aunt she could have mother's pearls, told a cousin he would help fund her wedding, told an uncle he might rent him the basement cheap. Every word made people fawn over him more, and every compliment stung like salt in a wound. I kept my head down. I let them believe I had accepted it. I played the quiet sibling, the one too weak or too sentimental to fight. What they did not know was that every night, I was gathering more proof. I met with the handwriting expert. She confirmed what I suspected. The signature on the filed will did not match the natural flow of my mother's hand. It was careful, deliberate, as if copied. She agreed to provide a written statement. With her report in my folder, the evidence became undeniable. I had mother's handwritten notes, the earlier draft she mailed me, and now a professional saying the filed version was altered. But timing mattered. If I revealed it too soon, Adrian would bury it in excuses. If I waited, he would tighten his grip on the family. I decided to wait for his next celebration. He liked showing off, and I needed an audience. The night came faster than expected. Adrian announced a dinner to honor Mother and bring us together. Everyone knew what it really was, another chance for him to play king. I arrived quietly, wearing black, carrying nothing but my folder. When I walked in, I felt eyes slide off me the way rain slides off glass. They were not here for me. They were here for him. Adrian stood at the center of the living room. Tie sharp, drink in hand, relatives circling him like satellites. The slideshow played again, this time updated with more photos of him as a child, him at graduations, him with mother smiling at his side. I was there in some, but always blurred, always in the background. A cousin hugged me stiffly and said, "Try to enjoy it." I smiled thinly and found a chair by the wall. Dinner was loud, full of clinking glasses and laughter. Adrian gave a toast, speaking about sacrifice and legacy. He said mother trusted him because he always took responsibility, because he knew how to protect what she valued. People clapped, some even stood. My chest burned, but I kept still. When dessert came, I moved. I stood and walked to the table, folder in hand. The chatter dimmed as I cleared my throat. I want to say something about mother too. Adrian's smile faltered just slightly. He gestured for me to continue, like a generous host. I pulled out the photocopies first, laying them side by side with the filed version. Gasps fluttered as people leaned in. "These are copies mother gave me last year," I said. "And this is the one that was filed. Look closely. The wording is different. The signature is different. And here," I pulled the expert's report, "is a professional confirming that this signature was forged." The room went silent. Forks paused in midair. My aunt squinted, muttering, "They do look different." A cousin whispered, "Oh my God." Adrian laughed, too loud. "This is ridiculous," he said. "She must have been mistaken. Mother updated her will, and you just can't accept it." But then I slid out the index card, the one with her handwriting, her date, her note about revising with both children present. "If she updated it," I said, "then why is this note still here? Why did she leave me this copy? Why does nothing add up?" Whispers filled the room, louder this time. My uncle frowned, pulling the papers closer. "This doesn't look right, Adrian." For the first time, his face lost its calm. His jaw clenched, his eyes darted. The king's crown tilted. I closed the folder, stood tall, and let the silence stretch. "Mother believed in fairness," I said. "She raised us both. She would never have erased me. The only person who wanted me erased was you." The celebration had become a trial, and Adrian was no longer the host. He was the accused. After that night, the family split clean down the middle. Some cousins swore they had always suspected Adrian was too smug, too rehearsed. Others still clung to him, begging him to explain, to fix the story. But no amount of charm could cover what I laid out on that table. Once you see a forged signature side by side with the real thing, you cannot unsee it. Adrian tried to spin it. He said mother wanted peace, that she only trusted him to handle money responsibly, that I was being dramatic. But the handwriting expert's report shut that down quickly. My uncle demanded copies. My aunt insisted on calling the lawyer herself, and suddenly everyone who had been bowing to him was backing away like his chair was on fire. What followed was ugly. Meetings with attorneys, depositions, cold phone calls from relatives who just weeks earlier had called me selfish. Adrian grew more desperate with each passing day. The man who once walked into gatherings like a king now avoided eye contact, his voice rising in anger whenever someone pressed him for answers. And then came the final blow. The court confirmed it. The will was invalid. The assets reverted to the original draft, the one where everything was split evenly. I thought I would feel triumphant. I thought the weight would lift. But standing outside the courthouse, papers in hand, all I felt was hollow. Yes, I had exposed him. Yes, I had reclaimed what was mine. But the family dinners were gone. The aunts who once hugged me now stayed silent, embarrassed at how quickly they had traded loyalty for promises of jewelry and cash. The cousins who laughed at his jokes would not meet my eyes. Adrian no longer called me brother. The house was divided between us, but I could never step inside without remembering the night they cheered for him and looked through me like I was nothing. I got half the savings, half the possessions, half the legal victory. But the trust that used to hold us together was gone, shattered in a way no court could fix. Sometimes I replay that dinner in my mind. The clinking glasses, the slideshow, the moment the laughter died as I laid out the proof. It was the closest thing to revenge I will ever get. Not because I wanted his money, but because I wanted them all to see him for what he really was. A liar. A fraud. A brother who chose greed over blood. And maybe that is the real inheritance he left me. Not a house or a savings account, but the bitter knowledge that when money is on the table, family shows you exactly who they are.